Hello everybody, it's Deborah from Attic Lane and I'm here to show you how I made 10 cards from one kit using the August 2017 Simon Says stamp You and Me kit. So this is a package that I received. It's always very exciting to pull out the contents, and you can see in there there's quite a lot, and there is always a lollipop. I'm going to save that lollipop for later. This is the sheet that comes with the kit. It's for inspiration, it's some ideas from the design team, and then there are 5 pieces of cardstock in colours that match and coordinate with the rest of the kit. There's a brand new Distress Oxide ink pad in Cracked Pistachio, and there's also embossing powder from WOW called Cloud 9. These are the You and Me stamps, and you can see there's lots of sentiments and geometric shapes in there, and there are also some puffy stickers. The paper pad is 6 inches square, and again it has lots of geometric shapes and patterns in there. This is a very useful page. It has lots of little boxes with sayings and phrases in them. So I'm ready to prepare my card bases, and I cut the pieces of cardstock in half and fold across the top. I've also added some white cards because I think I may want to use some of that coloured card in my designs. So I'm starting with this sheet that has the squares and with phrases and sayings in them, and I'm going to cut them all out individually. I'm starting card 1 by cutting out some white pieces of card that are bigger than the phrase pieces that I've already cut, and I'm inking them up with Cracked Pistachio. I'm going to use these as a mat. Now I'm using the same colour, Cracked Pistachio, to ink up the arrow stamp, and I'm going to stamp that onto my base card 3 times. So these are the little square phrases matted onto the Cracked Pistachio background, and I'm just positioning them in place on the card. I'm using some foam pads just to raise them up and give them a little bit of dimension as well. Now when I did this card first time, I added this little orange sticker because I wanted a colour to ping out from it, but in the finished card you'll see I've actually changed my mind about that and I've removed that little puffy sticker. But what I have used are some orange arrows from the puffy sticker set. And now, just to give the card a nice frame, I'm going around the outside edge with the ink pad again. And the card is finished. Onto card 2, and I'm using a piece of paper from the 6x6 inch pad to form a background for my next card, and I'm just cutting it to size because I wanted to fit inside the card base with a little border around the outside edge. I'm using more of those squares that I've cut out, and I'm going to use the grey card as a mat for them, and I'm going to glue them into a square formation. I've got another piece of the basic cardstock, the grey cardstock, and I'm inking up my stamp that says love with the Versamark ink pad and going over it with the embossing powder, and this will be heat set. See the shiny? So now I'm going to mat that up using another piece of card from the paper pad, and then I'm going to add that to the front of my card right in the centre. The embossing powder really grew on me as I used it on more of the projects, and I'll show you a little bit later in the video the impact that it has on different colours of cardstock that you're using. At first I found it a bit annoying because it's a really micro fine glitter and it did seem to go everywhere, but I think the benefits of using it outweigh that small price that you have to pay to keep wiping down your mat to keep the glitter out of all your other projects. So now I'm just assembling the finished card. And my card is finished. So moving on to card 3. Now here I want to use one of the words from this sheet, and I'm also using a complementary coloured sheet that will be used as a mat. And I'm just going around the outside edges and inking it up with the ink pad that's part of the kit. So I want to use the word live. I've cut it out, and I'm now going to create a little bit of extra interest on this card by inking up the cracked pistachio ink pad, and then I'm going to use the embossing glitter to really make this zing. And I found I was able to stamp out 3 sections using this 3-lined stamp before I needed to go over it with the glitter so that it didn't dry before I'd had a chance to add the glitter. And I heat emboss it as I go along. So that's the finished card, and there's my mat that I've created and inked around the edges. And I've cut the liv to shape so that it will fit on top of my little piece of base card. And now I'm going to take one of the puffy stickers and add that. Because I'm adding the puffy sticker, I don't need to add any other dimension, and that's my card finished. On to card 4. I wanted to use the geometric patterns, so I'm cutting out a corner piece from the 6-inch paper pad. I'm going to use a colour from Versacolour called Polar Blue because I found that was a really nice match for the grey that forms part of the colour in the corner piece here. And I'm just inking it up with 2 of the sentiments from the stamp kit. They fit beautifully between those 2 lines. I'm going to glue that in place, and then I'm going to add an extra stamp, the thanks stamp, and I'm going to use the same colour of Polar Blue to stamp that just down the I want to say corner, just down the diagonal line, that's the word I'm looking for, the diagonal, so that I keep that geometric theme. I'm now going to add, using the same Polar Blue, the arrows to point down towards the word thanks to give it a little bit more emphasis. And now I'm reaching for my puffy stickers, and I'm going to use a couple of those little arrows again just to re-emphasize the attention on the word thanks. And my card is finished. That's a very simple, straightforward card. On to card 5. So again, I want to use those diagonal lines, and I'm cutting this down so that it will fit onto my card base and leave me a little border. And I wanted to use another piece of paper, this piece here, with the sort of wedges on it. So I decided to cover up the marble paper and overlay my other paper, and then, as you'll see, I'll turn the card over and I'll cut out the piece so that it forms a nice rectangle. So I'm just going to secure that onto my white base card. And now I'm going to use another piece of paper from the 6x6 paper pad. It's got X's and O's on it, and I'm using that same idea of fitting the words, the stamped words, in between the rows. And I'm finishing it off with a heart, which will be embossed and heat set. Some foam pads complete the design, and it's stuck in place, and the card is finished. On to card 6. Now I'm using my craft mat, and I'm using a little rubber glove because I kept myself very messy doing this technique, and I've seen other people do it and they manage to keep their hands clean, and I can't at all, so I have to wear a glove. So I've just smooshed the ink, the distressed oxide ink, onto my pad. I've put down a base layer on my white card, and now, as an experiment, I'm adding some of the embossing powder into it and then adding a little spray of water to spread that embossing powder around. What I found when I dried this was that the embossing powder appeared to be silver, and I thought, oh, it's silver embossing powder. But as you will see in another project, it's not quite that simple. So now I'm stamping using black Versamark ink, and I'm using the You and Me equals Awesome stamp, and I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm going to show you the effect that the glitter, the embossing glitter powder, has if you use a different colour. So same technique, but this time I'm using a Distress Oxide, which is Spiced Marmalade. And I'm using this because I thought it complemented some of the other colours in the kit, the really strong orange in that kit. So now I'm going in with my water spray just to move the ink around a little bit, keep it mobile, then take a little bit off so I get those lovely splattery effects. And this time I'm putting the embossing powder directly onto the card while the ink is still a little bit damp, and I've heat set it. Now in this, it's difficult to show you, but in this card it appears to be silver, and in the orange card it appears to be more golden. So I thought that was a really nice effect. I'm just taking the corners off those little labels with my my tool, which I've forgotten the name of. Decornerizer, perhaps. And while I was trying to remember the name of the tool, I've gone ahead and stamped the grey piece of cardstock with just a made-up design that matches the one on the label with the hearts plus hearts. And I think that gives it a nice sort of folky look. And so because of that, I've decided to use a little bit of twine to complete those two tags, and I'm just passing the twine through the front. I'll catch it at the back on the loop and I'll tighten it up. Again, I'm adding foam pads, but only to the top one, only to the green one, because the orange label is flat on the card. And I want to add just a little bit of extra to that orange tag, so I'm adding glossy accents to the bottom heart. And with that, the card is complete. On to card 7, and this time I'm using the Distress Oxide as a paint. I'm just watering it down a little bit. I'm adding some paint splatters, and then I'm going to use my brush to add a little muddle of colour in the middle. Maybe a puddle of colour is a nicer way to describe that. So this time I'm going to ink up using VersaFine Smoky Grey ink, and I'm going to use two of the longer elements from the stamp set, and it's the little dotted line and the plus sign. And I can move the long stamps around a little bit, so that if I want one on the outside, I want it to be a bit longer than the one on the inside, I can swap it around. I really like the cracked pistachio with the grey. I thought that worked beautifully together. Now these are some little words that I've cut from the paper pad. They were part of a bigger design, but I wanted to use the words because the words in themselves are quite nice. They have some nice sentiments on them. So I'm just choosing which ones I'm going to use, and I'm cutting them in place. I'm going to put them down onto the card. I'm going to stick them onto the card using some very, very narrow foam pads that were actually in the previous month's Simon Says stamp kit. And that's everything is sealed down and the card is complete. On to card 8. I'm going to use titanium white heavy body acrylic paint. I've watered it down. I'm going to create some white splashes on this piece of cardstock. And now I'm using black Versamark ink, and this is going to be quite a striking card. So I'm inking up the corner stamp and I'm just positioning that, and I'm going to repeat this pattern across the rest of the card. You can see that I've decided that I'm going to use a square sentiment that I cut from the paper pad earlier on, and I'm using that to give me an idea of where I need to position that, that corner. I've added an orange matte to my sentiment, and I've also cut a very, very thin strip of the orange cardstock, and onto that I'm going to stamp one of the very small little tiny lettered sentiments. I'm stamping "You Are a Great Friend" just using black Versamark ink. Once that's glued in place on my card, I'm going to add a couple more of the Puffy Stickers little arrows just to draw some more attention to that sentiment. And with that, my card is complete. Moving on to card 9. Now this is a bit of a departure. I think I was finding the geometry a little bit hard and I wanted to do something a little bit out of the box. So I've put a piece of masking tape just on the base of that card, and I've inked around the edges using the cracked pistachio Distress Oxide ink pad. Now these longer stamps are very flexible, so I've taken advantage of that and I've curved it over, and I'm going to create a sort of a garden scene. What's great is that you can change the angle of these, and if you want it to turn and go the opposite direction, you just move it how you like it. So I started with the cracked pistachio Distress Oxide, and I move on to the peeled paint Distress Oxide to create a little bit of extra interest by using a darker green. And then I'm going to use the heart stamps, to make a sort of a flower head on top of those flower stems. And the two colours that I'm using are Spiced Marmalade, as I used before in an earlier card, and Wild Honey. Because those little sentiment words are so narrow, I decided I could use them as stems in the middle, in the centre of my card. So I've used Incredible and Great Friend. And again, I've bent the stamps ever so slightly. And when you release the masking paper on the bottom, it makes the card look a whole lot nicer. It looked a bit messy before. I've used Heart plus Heart equals Love, little stamps from the set, and with that my card is almost finished, except that I'm adding Nouveau drops. These are ebony black crystal drops. Because I have black in the bottom of the card, I need to balance up the rest of the card, which is why I'm adding a little bit of black just to the centre of those flowers. And now the card is complete. On to card 10. Now this is a very simple matting and layering card. I wanted to really exploit some of the papers that I hadn't used so far. So I've used an orange card base, I've cut out 3 layers, 3 mats, and I'm featuring this puffy sentiment right in prominent place. I thought those colours worked really nicely together, but it needed a little bit of zing, so I'm adding some green. With that, I'm going to leave you with close-ups of all the cards that I've made today. I'm going to say thank you very much to all the new subscribers. You're very welcome. I hope you keep watching. I hope you keep enjoying. And if you like, please give a thumbs up or add a little comment in the comments section. Thank you for watching.